prioritizing tasks and projects in your business. It's a tricky thing. As music teachers, we wear many hats. You hear me say this all the time. And it's something where when, we're wearing all these hats, it can be difficult to keep things straight and even tougher to prioritize what actually needs to be done first, second, third, etc. So typically what happens is that we reach for the task that feels easiest to us. Oh, like, hey, this is why I just spent 3 hours wasted on Canva. Or we reach for the project that we think is going to have the biggest payout, but we forgot to calculate all of the costs that are involved. And before you know it, you've spent a lot of time and a lot of effort chasing after one project, and you found that it's not actually making a difference in your life or your business. So if that sounds familiar to you, let me know, because it's something that I know that I've struggled with in the past. And today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how we can use different tools to help us prioritize our tasks and to really measure the impact and effort involved. A couple years ago, probably about 4 years ago, we touched on this topic talking about an impact effort matrix and how we can use that to judge whether or not a project that we have in mind or a task that we have on our to-do list is something that needs to be done first, second, third, or maybe needs to be like pushed off down to the bottom of the list. So today what we're going to do is we're going to revisit that matrix and look at why it doesn't necessarily work. So today I'm going to have 3 tips for you to help you start prioritizing your things so that you can actually achieve the success that you want to in your music business. But before we get to that, let's play a little bit of intro music and then I'll be right back. And I'm back. Couldn't get that button to click correctly. Okay, so today we are going to be talking through a topic that I'm really passionate about, because I want us to continuously circle back to figuring out how can we be wise in what we choose to do inside of our business. Because I don't know if you're like me, if you sit down at the beginning of the week or the beginning of the quarter, beginning of the year, and you make a list of all of the stuff that you want to see happen, that ends up being like a pretty hefty list. And it can feel like, I'm not sure where to start with things. So you pick, like I mentioned earlier, you pick something that might feel easy, or you pick something that might feel fun. And then all of a sudden you realize, like, we've miscalculated how this project or this event might work out, or we've discovered that like we picked that specific thing as a procrastination tool to avoid doing the harder things that might have like a longer term impact in your business and your life. So today we're going to talk about prioritization, and we're going to get to all the goods. But before I do that, let me stop and introduce myself. For those of you who might be new here, my name is Sara Campbell. I am a business strategist, mindset, and marketing coach for music studio owners like you and online independent education experts, course creators, things like that. And I go live here on Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern, where we talk about all those topics. And today we're really digging into the planning and the strategizing behind your business decisions so that we can make really smart decisions about the tasks that we're going to take on. So if you are here, please be sure to say hello and let me know where you're tuning in from today. If you're watching on the replay, know that I love to hop back into the conversations. So, join in and let's get going. So let's take a look at a couple of housekeeping things real quick. Again, the topic of the day is we're going to be discussing prioritizing tasks and projects. And specifically, we're going to look at 3 tips that are going to help us better use what they call an impact effort matrix. We're going to kind of unpack what that means. We're going to talk about why I think it's actually a myth. And we're going to go through 3 specific tips that we can apply to those prioritization lists when we're trying to figure out, well, what's next in my business? What should I be doing today, right? Okay, so if you hear anything in this conversation, because one of the reasons I do these broadcasts, right, and I do them in a live public place, is so that we can have live public discussions about being a business owner. So come on in, join the conversation. If you hear something that's valuable to you, or if you have something that you would like to contribute, give us the word #takeaway, and then let us know what it is that you found valuable. And if you're live here, I'll be able to pull it up on the screen. If you do it on the replay, I'd love to come back and have a combo with you. If you're watching on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe. Thank you for those of you who have done so and turned on notifications so you can get a hold of our new videos. And as always, I do have the Savvy Sara bot set up today. And so she is ready to send you all the goods. So if you are watching on Facebook or on Instagram, you can drop the word matrix down below and she will deliver to you the show notes from today and a link to an additional resource that I thought that you might find useful. So go ahead and drop that down below and you'll be able to get a hold of that. For those who are watching on YouTube, if you look in the live chat, there's a pinned post there, or you can also check out the description of this video, and that's where you can click on that link in order to get a hold of those things. Okay, so let's do this. All right, I think I've gone through all of the things. Yeah, I did. We've checked all the things. Good morning to everyone. Christina and Karen and Anna and Susan. Nice to see you all here. Hi, Leisha. Nice to see you as well. Okay, let's do this. I actually want to stop and thank Anna Fagan for reaching out to me and suggesting that we revisit this topic. It looks like Facebook must have reminded her of when she watched the first time we talked about this topic, which, guys, believe this or not, that was 4 years ago. 4 years ago, I did a broadcast about impact and effort. And when she suggested that it would be a great topic to revisit, I thought, oh my gosh, absolutely. Let's revisit this topic. And so I did a little bit of research, and that's where today's broadcast comes from. And I've got a little bit of a twist to this. So I want to unpack this issue. Okay, so we'll just unpack this for a second. So I've mentioned this before. The idea is, you have a lot of things that need to get done. Either they're large projects, anything from like, hey, big project. I'm starting a new course. I'm, adding a new recital, or, I'm launching a new offer, like a new service offer, to, hey, I have to send out that reminder email. Hey, I have to onboard this client. Hey, I have to make some social media posts. We have a lot of things on those lists. And so we need to learn how to prioritize them in a way that allows us to balance like wanting to get those quick wins and then also getting those long-term things done. So the problem is that a lot of times when we have those large lists and we're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, I'm speaking about myself, we reach for the easiest task, or we reach for the thing that
I don't understand.
Thank you, Siri. We reach for the things that feel fun for us, right? And what can happen when we're doing that is we may find that we waste a lot of time and effort on like small tasks, and we're using those things as like a way to procrastinate the big things. Or, and I can speak from experience in this too, we have this really cool idea in mind to like launch something new, or to add something new. And we don't calculate things well enough, and we don't think about the effort that it's going to take to do this thing, or we miscalculate the impact this thing might have on our business, thinking like, oh, it's going to make everything amazing. And we haven't really thought that through. And then what happens is you spend a lot of time, maybe a lot of money, trying to launch something new, and it flops. I'm just letting you know that's okay. Like, flops are natural in business. It doesn't mean that you're a bad business person. But what we want to do today is like unpack how can we get a little bit smarter about those things. Okay, so let's do this. All right, we're going to first start by looking at, what is this impact effort matrix that I keep referring to. So It has lots of different names, but basically it's a quadrant, and I'm going to bring it up on the screen in a second, and hopefully I'll be able to successfully point at it because it's backwards on my screen, and that's always confusing. But basically it's a quadrant that allows us to measure where we think a task is going to fall in terms of how hard is this slash how easy is this, and how much bang for the buck will there be? Like, is it going to be a big impact inside of my business, or is this going to be like a little tiny small impact? So I love, oh, this is great. I love this. Anna says flops are okay. They really are. You know, it doesn't mean that you aren't smart. It doesn't mean that your idea wasn't necessarily good. It just means that some things might have been missed along the way, and, you know, it's time to recalculate. So let's take a look at this matrix. Which way do I move? This way. And I'm going to point, shoot, I thought I had it right. I'm going to point this way. Okay. So this is like a traditional impact effort matrix where if we look at this chart on the bottom, this is where we're measuring, you know, how much effort is this task or this project going to take? An effort in terms of, you know, time, in terms of money, in terms, all of those things, right? How much effort? And then on the try it again. On this scale, right, we're measuring how much of an impact is this going to have on our business? Like, is this a really big thing that is going to like massively increase client retention or happiness? Or is it going to be something that could potentially bring in a lot of money, right? So this is how we start kind of graphing out where a task or a project might sit. And this is a really useful tool, or it can be, in terms of how you decide what you want to prioritize for your month, for your week, for your day, etc. So in this traditional you know, matrix, everything looks equal, doesn't it? It looks like each quadrant like has an equal little space. But here's the problem. That's not real. Right? These spaces are not actually equal. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to examine like what are these, you know, why doesn't this work? Because in this model, it looks like we've got equal areas of like, hey, I should probably define some of these things. Like something that's like low effort, low impact, you know, could be something like just making sure that you have some social media posts up so that it doesn't look like your social media has gone dormant. Like it's something that you maybe could do, right? Something that might be low effort and high effort, low impact might be a project that we like, that's something that you really don't want to do, that's not quite in your wheelhouse, but you're feeling pressured to do it. Something that might be high impact, low effort, right, would be, hey, how about like reaching out to previous clients and seeing if they want to maybe join a class that you're going to run, things like that. And, you know, the high impact, high effort are these projects that might have some risks to them. And we really want to be careful about whether or not we're going to like pour ourselves into those. But that's just in a nutshell. Now let's take a look at why this matrix doesn't work. So when Anna suggested I revisit this topic, I started doing some digging and I found a really, really cool blog that I absolutely love. I want to make sure that I link to this blog. It's going to be in our upcoming newsletters. So if you are not already receiving our Monday newsletters, just pop the word newsletter down below, and I'll give you a way that you can sign up for that newsletter. We put out things every Monday with just a little blurb like Happy Monday from me, and then a few interesting links. And typically, I send out one podcast, one blog, and one social media post that I found interesting. And then we also have links to things that we've been doing here at Savvy. So if you want to get a hold of that, just put newsletter down below. I am assuming that the majority of you who are watching right now already get the newsletter. So if you enjoy the newsletter, let me know. Okay, so here's why this matrix does not work, right? There are two things that happen. One, we tend to underestimate the amount of effort it takes to do a project or a task. Just ask my husband every time I ask him, like, what time will you be inside of the house? What's that last project that you're doing outside? He'll be like, oh, it's going to be about 20 minutes. And then my brain goes, okay, that means 60, right? I love Brad. Sorry to be ragging on you, Brad. Love you. So we underestimate the effort. It could be time. It could be money. The fancy reason that this happens is called cognitive biases, but basically, we are wishful thinkers, right? We're wishful thinkers. We think that it's going to be simple to do. We also have a tendency to overestimate the impact that it's going to have in our business. Basically, our successes, the success of a task will be thwarted due to like unforeseen or perhaps even not willfully ignored costs and like a lack of measurable positive results. So we either don't have clear metrics around like what success actually means, and I'll give you an example of that in a second, or again, we tend to be wishful thinkers. So like, let me just define what I mean by those clear metrics. Let's say that a project that you have is to launch a new social media channel, and you don't actually have a list of like what does it mean for that to be successful? Like, how can we tell if it's going well? And so, you might overestimate the impact that having a social media channel might have or launching a new website might have, because we don't have clear metrics. We don't know what kind of analytics do we want to see? Like, do we want to see how many people do we want to see visiting that? Of those people who are visiting it, how many people do we want to see clicking through to things? So that's basically why the impact chart does not work. If you're with me so far, let me know. Put something down in the comments below because I'm a little bit rambly today and I'm worried. All right, so that's basically why this matrix doesn't work. Now let's look at remaking the matrix. We're gonna like Neo this thing. You ready? So if we remake the matrix and we take into consideration the fact that we often overestimate the impact that something has, or we underestimate the amount of effort that something has. I love it. Look at it, picking up what you're putting down. Anna says, with you. Love you both. Here's what the matrix looks like, and it's a bit of a shock. You ready? Hey there, Cassandra's on YouTube. Okay, so now we've remade our matrix. I am going to point in the right direction. I have to point, shoot, I did it again. I have to point this way. That is so confusing to me. Like you don't know. Okay. So now we've remade this matrix, and this thing that had 4 equal quadrants now has something that is like way different. So here's what we see. The things that we thought were high impact, low effort, and maybe like, high impact, low effort, high impact, and high impact, high effort, they are in a much smaller area now. And now we're going to call this projects to consider, things that you might want to do, right? And we're going to talk about how do we actually measure those things, right? Okay, we're going to get to that. Then we have this other area that used to be, let me bring it back up. I think it's going to be underneath though. Let me try this. We have the nope area, right? And the maybe area. All these little, oh, you can't see my thing across the screen. And you can't see me pointing across it. Imagine, see this? Watch this overlay. Didn't work. Never mind. So this area totally changes now, right? We have these projects that you might work, but might not. And then we have this area down below that's like crap that you totally want to avoid, right? So I want to point out that on this matrix, if you look carefully, the 2 arrow lines have switched, right? This right here, we've brought this arrow up. And so the stuff down below doesn't even like measure on our matrix anymore. It's the stuff that like, don't do it. It's not worth your time. So let's take a look at how can we accurately measure impact and effort, or at least attempt to, because it's hard, right? And all those cognitive biases floating around in our head, all that wishful thinking is going to tell us a lot of lies. So let's look at 3 tips that are going to help us to hopefully get a little smarter about our matrix. And thank you, Susan. I had fun making it on Canva. Gotta say, like, that was probably not one of like the best impact tasks, but I am going to reuse that in a blog, so it works. By the way, I know it's been a long time since we've added new blog material to Savvy Music Studio, but one of our projects over the next couple of months is that we're going to be putting out new blog posts about twice a month. So we're going to give you some good stuff over there, and I'm hoping that you will enjoy the new material that's going to be over there. We should be getting out our first vlog in about a week and a half, so I'm very excited about that. All right, so let's look at the 3 things that we can consider in order to avoid this over-underestimation pitfall that might happen. So the first thing is this: be curious about what urgent is, right? These urgent tasks that show up on our to-do list, or like pop into your messages or pop into your email, things like that. We're often drawn to these time-sensitive / urgent tasks over tasks that have a long-term payoff. And so we might set intentions at the beginning of the week to be focusing on, hey, I need to overhaul like this service or this class, or I need, I need to start getting summer workshop plans in place. And we have all the good intentions of looking at those things and dedicating like good chunks of time into those things. But then these urgent, time sensitive stuff, pop into our inboxes or pop into our brains. And then you've spent a lot of time doing these pretty low effort, low impact, hopefully, tasks. And they've really robbed you of a lot of time that's going to be spent in those higher areas. So when we're talking about like revisiting this again, those things that might be more it's never going to work. High impact, high effort. We're going to avoid those things when we start seeing like this low impact, low effort stuff, or even in this orange quadrant here, right? So this like low impact, high effort. Let's like define that, like low impact, high effort. Some of those things, I'm just gonna say it. Having fights in Facebook forums with other teachers over stuff, not worth your time. Or spending a lot of emotional energy and mental energy, like trying to think about how to respond to an email, or trying to get into the brain of a student who did something awkward, and you're telling yourself stories about these things. Those are low impact, high effort things. And those are a lot of those things that pop in as feeling like urgent within us, not just things that pop into our inbox, but just things that pop into our brain. Thank you, MJ. Nice to see you. And then Cassandra says, like, her takeaway today is to see what's urgent. And let's define, what does urgent actually mean? So that's the first thing. The second thing that we want to do is to make conservative calculations. Now, we don't often think about this. We might get really excited about like a new service or a new product or a new course, and we don't sit down and crunch the numbers, because math is gross, as my friend Michelle says. Actually, I think she says feelings is gross. She just doesn't want to math out loud. But basically it's this, like, so we need to take a little bit of time, sit down, account for all the known costs, right? Things that you can anticipate for that recital that you want to do, for that open mic night that you want to start, etc. But then also you probably should add in like a little buffer area of like, there might be some unknown costs in here, right? So, maybe add a little bit more to that. Same thing with the amount of time that it takes to do stuff. I still cannot get Brad to understand that he really literally needs to times 3 every time he says something will take 15 minutes. It will take 45. It is accurate math. I have like 18 years to prove it. But the same thing can be said for me, right? So, think about what is the time that you think is going to take to do this, and let's maybe like play with those numbers a little bit. And then if you are considering launching something new, because I have a lot of teachers who approach me with ideas to launch courses, or maybe they've already launched them and they want assistance to, build funnels or to scale and things like that. It's time to crunch some numbers on conversions. Now I'm going to give you like a typical conversion rate for something that might be new or even established. A typical conversion rate, meaning the people that are actually going to purchase out of all the people that saw your stuff, right? It would be like 2 to 5%. That's actually considered good, right? A 2 to 5% conversion rate is considered like you're on track. You did a good job. You succeeded. So if you're going to, launch a new thing and you're approaching the numbers by thinking, okay, I need 20 people in order for this to be successful, then I need you to work that into the math. Okay, if you need 20 people in order for that to be successful, and that is only like for if that is only like a 2% conversion, then think about the number of people that you actually need to get involved. I would do the math, but I don't have a calculator, and that's not my forte. So we want to account for the known costs and maybe like think about some unknowns, and then also think about your conversion rates. So finally, the third tip here. Let's get to that for a second. Yeah, many think in terms of the 2-minute warning in football, which actually means another 30 minutes. So smart. I love it, Karen. Thank you. Finally, the last item here, and when we're thinking about how to, get a little bit more wise about, bringing it back up to the screen, this impact effort matrix, right, is to think about what are some ways that you can validate new ideas. If you're trying to do something new, let's spend some time validating it first. So a couple of ways that pop to mind that are most useful for our industry, and then I'll mention one that's like more specific towards like just people who do online courses, would be do some client surveys. If you are thinking about doing, let's say that you're thinking about adding a new type of recital. Okay. Let's say that you own a voice studio. Maybe you don't have any recitals yet, right? Maybe you work with adults, okay? And most of the time that you've worked with people, it's just one-on-one lessons, and you're thinking about what are some ways that I can provide bigger opportunities for my clients, maybe like to create a more a more high touch kind of offer service package that you want to include some things like open mic nights or, helping them develop their own shows and things like that. Before you dive into that, let's do a client survey and see if that's something that people want. And a client survey can be as simple as, hey, I want to I'm going to mention this to people, and to be just honest. I'd really love to know your honest opinion. I'm kicking around a few ideas in my brain, and I want you to tell me, like, I will not be insulted if you say, like, heck no. I want you to tell me, is this something that you would be interested in? Do some client surveys. The other thing you can do is to think about audience surveys, right? This is something that we've been trying to incorporate a little bit more at Savvy, to think about what is it that the audience is looking for. And that's going to give you some really good information as to whether or not that project that you had in mind is going to be something that sits like, let me take this guy out of the way, that sits, oh, can I do it? I'm so nervous. No, I can't. All right. So if it's going to sit up here in the green, or if it's going to be down here in the orange, or if it's going to be down here in the red. So do the surveys, validate your ideas before you jump into stuff. All right. So we're going to get to a rapid recap in a second, but I would love to know from some of you, okay, what are some of the really cool projects or tasks that you have in mind for the rest of this year? Do you have some things that you're not quite sure whether or not like you want to do them? Like you're like, this is like this really cool dream that I have. I would love to know that from you, because it's exciting for me to figure out or to just discover and like walk alongside people what they're doing this year. So I would love to know what are some of the things that you have in mind. Go ahead and drop that down below in the comments. I'll bring this up before we get to our recap. Cassandra says her takeaway today: low impact, high effort energy is like having uneventful conversations and discussions. Did it really provide benefit for you and or your business cause? Awesome. Thank you, Cassandra. You're wonderful. Okay, so let's get to the goods. Quick reminder before we do our recap. I have the Savvy Sara bot set up, so drop the word matrix down below if you would like to get a hold of that. If you are on YouTube, look in the live chat, or check out the discussion. That's where you'll find a special link for you to click to get a hold of those resources. One of the things that I'm going to be sending you is I'm going to send you over to the blog because I mentioned earlier today, this is a continued conversation of something that we did 4 years ago. And over on the blog, we have it's a really short read and then a video that's attached that is more about impact and effort and using that chart. Okay. So if you'd like a hold of that, the Savvy Sara bot will set you up with the word matrix. And let's take a look at some of these projects and ideas. I love it. Laura says she's thinking of adding master classes. Lessons by Victoria says expanding my composing to vocal music. Oh, that's wonderful. So exciting. I didn't know that you composed. So cool. Karen says, I'm getting more students to attend live music concerts. I love that. Great. And then Chelsea says that she's getting into some group classes and she wants to gain some momentum and excitement there. Cassandra is starting a podcast and creating a welcome packet and box for her students and clients. I love it. Okay, great. So I hope that, what we've talked about today for all of those of you who are thinking about starting new things, right? I hope that this has been valuable to think about what can I do to sit down and calculate this. I'm going to read this one out loud because it's a bit big to bring up on the screen. Susan says, the tricky thing about calculating cost versus benefit is figuring out how much benefit is worth, right? Like if I break even but bring more awareness to my studio, is it worth the time? Or if time-consuming event costs me more than it brings in, but then it leads to 3 to 4 long-term clients signing up, is it worth it? This is so tough to figure out. Oh, right? You've hit right on the issue, right? Calculating those things is hard. And that's why no matter where we are in these crazy matrices, whether it looks like this or whether it looks like this, there's a bit of risk involved to starting something new. But isn't that part of the fun of running a business, right? Don't we get a little bit excited when we think about something that we're passionate about and we find a type of project that we know this is good, or we hope this is really going to serve my clients well? And so I don't say all this to scare you. I just say it to inform, right? So that we can think about things a little bit more deeply before we take them on. All right, let's get to the rapid recap. Give me a drum roll, please, because these always make me nervous. Yes, Anna, it is an adventure and I love it. Okay, so, all right, let's do this rapid recap. This is going to be so interesting. Here we go. And so, as an independent music teacher, you're juggling a lot of stuff and, teaching, managing your studio, your personal life, etc. It can be really tough to keep things straight and to prioritize what needs to be done first, second, third, etc. So basically what happens is we tend to reach for that easy task and then we wasted 3 hours on Canva, or we grab something that we think is going to have a big payout, but we've made some mistakes and we haven't actually calculated the costs and time and effort involved. So what can we do? Well, we can use something like an impact effort matrix, and it might be useful, but it also might not, because let's be honest, that matrix doesn't necessarily work because we have a tendency to overestimate the impact that something will have, how much money it will bring in, how successful it will be, what it will actually do for our business. And we have a tendency to underestimate the amount of effort that it takes to do something. Cognitive biases and all of that stuff. So if we really wanted to look at an accurate matrix, it might be something more like this. And you'll notice that things have changed quite a bit. So what can we do? What we need to do is to keep in mind that when we are trying to measure impact and effort, we got to keep some things in mind. Here they are. Ready? The first thing to keep in mind is that we want to be curious about tasks that feel time sensitive / urgent, because we're often drawn to those things that feel that way over tasks that actually might have a long-term payoff. So if something feels urgent to you, just sit with it for a second and be a little curious and ask, is this urgent? Is it something that I need to do right now? Or is this something that I can put off and I can refocus my energy on that task that's going to be a higher impact in my business? Another thing that we can do is to think about making conservative calculations / guesstimates. So doing our best to account for all known costs in terms of our projects, and maybe also adding in like a little wiggle room for unknown costs. So adding a little bit more time to how something, how much something's going to take or how much money something's going to cost. And then also, to speak to the people who do online courses or are starting like a brand new project, like an in person workshop, and you've never done it before, I want you to start thinking about through conversion rates, because a good conversion rate would be like 2 to 5% of the people who find out about your stuff sign up. So keep that number in mind. That's going to really let you know like how many people need to know about this in order for you to reach that successful number, in order to have a course that goes well or a workshop that runs well. The third thing is to, as much as you can, validate new ideas before you try them out. This could mean having, a little bit of time during lessons where you survey your clients and ask their honest opinions about things that you're thinking about doing. It could also mean, doing an audience survey. That could be on social media, it could be via email, it could be in all kinds of different places. So think about validating your idea first. And if you can do that, that's going to give you like a better idea about whether or not that's actually going to be something that's successful. All right. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this, if you'd like to learn more about what I had to say about impact and effort, you can put the word matrix down below and get a hold of the resources that we have over on the Savvy Music Studio blog. And in the meantime, until next time, I should say, stay savvy and stay you, because you are an amazing teacher, and there's no one in the world quite like you. And I think you're pretty dang awesome. So thanks for being here, everyone. We'll see you next time.